The day we moved into the old mansion, I couldn't help but feel a shiver crawl up my spine. It was a massive, decrepit structure, like something straight out of a gothic horror novel. Ivy clung to its crumbling walls, and the windows were dark voids that seemed to swallow the sunlight. My wife, Sarah, and I had been searching for a home for our small family, and this place, despite its eerie appearance, was strangely affordable. We had a daughter, Emily, who was just 5 years old at the time. She was a bright and imaginative child, always full of wonder and curiosity. As we stepped inside the mansion, Emily's eyes widened with amazement. She was already talking about all the adventures she would have exploring this grand old house. The realtor showed us around, pointing out the mansion's unique features and history. Apparently, it had been built in the late 19th century by a reclusive millionaire named Elijah Blackwood. The Blackwood family had lived there for generations before mysteriously disappearing in the early 20th century. The mansion had been abandoned ever since, and stories of hauntings and strange occurrences had plagued it for years. Despite the unsettling tales, we decided to move forward with the purchase. We couldn't pass up such a grand house at such an affordable price. We were optimistic, believing the rumors to be nothing more than superstition. The first few weeks in the mansion were surprisingly peaceful. We settled in and began to make the place our own. Emily, in particular, seemed to thrive in her new surroundings. She spent hours in the mansion's vast library, surrounded by dusty old books and forgotten tales. Her imagination ran wild, and she started drawing pictures of strange, eerie scenes filled with grotesque figures. I brushed it off as a phase and thought nothing more of it. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to change. Emily's drawings took on a disturbing quality that sent shivers down my spine. Her once cheerful depictions of sunsets and animals transformed into dark, sinister scenes of decaying mansions and grotesque, shadowy figures. One evening, after tucking Emily into bed, I noticed one of her drawings on the floor. It depicted a monstrous creature with long, spindly fingers reaching out toward a terrified child. I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as I stared at it. It was as if her innocent drawings were tapping into something malevolent within the house. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing strange, muffled sounds coming from the walls, like whispers in a foreign language. I dismissed them as the creaks and groans of an old house settling in for the night. But then, just before dawn, I heard Emily's voice echoing through the halls. I rushed to her room, my heart pounding. Emily was sitting up in her bed, her eyes wide and vacant. She was speaking in a language I couldn't understand, her voice cold and devoid of emotion. It sent a chill down my spine as I tried to wake her from whatever nightmare had possessed her. It was then that I noticed the drawing she had been working on earlier, now complete and more disturbing than ever. The monstrous figure from her drawing seemed to come to life, its twisted form materializing at the foot of Emily's bed. I gasped, frozen in terror, as it reached out its long, bony fingers toward my daughter. I could feel an oppressive, malevolent presence in the room, and I knew we were not alone. I scooped Emily into my arms, and the creature vanished in a puff of black smoke. Emily woke up, confused and scared, with no memory of what had just happened. I knew then that something was terribly wrong with this house, something far more sinister than we had ever imagined. Over the next few weeks, the malevolent force in the house continued to grow stronger. Emily's drawings became even darker, and she began to display increasingly bizarre and disturbing behavior. She would talk to invisible entities, giggle at odd hours, and sometimes even disappear for hours on end, only to reappear in places we couldn't fathom. We began to research the history of the mansion, desperate for answers. We discovered that Elijah Blackwood, the mansion's original owner, had been a recluse with a fascination for the occult. He had dabbled in dark rituals and believed that the mansion was a portal to another realm. It was said that he had summoned dark entities to the house, and that his family had paid the price for his obsession. Desperate to save our daughter, we sought the help of a local medium and paranormal investigator. They conducted a seance in the mansion, attempting to communicate with whatever malevolent force had taken hold. As they called out to the spirits, the mansion seemed to come alive with sinister energy. Emily's drawings, which had been scattered throughout the room, began to levitate and spin in a ghostly dance. The temperature plummeted, and a deep, guttural voice filled the room, speaking in a language we couldn't understand. It was a chilling, otherworldly experience that confirmed our worst fears. The mansion was indeed a gateway to a malevolent realm, and our daughter was caught in its grip. The medium and investigator performed a cleansing ritual, using sage and incantations to banish the dark entities from the house. As they did, the mansion seemed to tremble and shake, as if fighting to hold onto its secrets. Finally, with a blinding flash of light, the malevolent force was expelled, and the house fell silent. Emily's drawings returned to their innocent, childlike state, and she gradually returned to her old self. The sense of dread that had hung over the mansion lifted, and we finally felt at peace in our new home. But the scars of that ordeal would never truly fade. We had come face to face with a darkness that defied explanation, and it had left its mark on all of us. We would never forget the horrors we had witnessed in that old, decrepit mansion, and we would always be haunted by the sinister secrets that lurked within its walls. To this day, I can't help but wonder what might have happened if we had never discovered the truth about the mansion's grim history. I shudder to think of the fate that could have befallen our beloved daughter if we had remained unaware of the malevolent force that dwelled within. The experience has left me with a deep and abiding fear of the unknown, and a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying horrors are the ones that hide in plain sight. I've always been drawn to the quiet beauty of coastal towns. The crashing waves, the salty air, and the rugged charm of the landscape have a way of soothing my soul. It was in one such town that my life took a terrifying turn. I was a local artist, known for my landscapes and seascapes that captured the essence of the ocean's ever-changing moods. One sunny afternoon, while strolling through the town's quaint art gallery, I stumbled upon a painting that sent a shiver down my spine. It was a child's creation, a simple piece in primary colors, depicting a ghostly figure standing by the sea, its long, flowing hair whipping in the wind. The child's depiction was hauntingly beautiful. The ghostly figure had an ethereal quality, like a spirit drawn from the depths of the sea. Its eyes held a sadness that seemed to pierce through the canvas and into my very soul. I couldn't look away. The gallery owner told me the painting was a recent addition, brought in by a local family who claimed their child had an imaginary friend that looked just like the figure in the painting. Intrigued, I inquired about the family, hoping to learn more about the mysterious artwork. The owner gave me their contact information, and I couldn't resist the urge to visit and hear the story behind the painting. The family lived in a modest cottage by the sea. They welcomed me warmly, and over a cup of tea, they told me about their daughter, Lily. She was a quiet, imaginative child who had always had an affinity for the sea. They explained that Lily had been seeing the ghostly figure by the shore for months, and she had felt compelled to paint it. As they spoke, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of curiosity. The painting had a hold on me, and I knew I had to recreate it in my studio. I asked if I could borrow the painting for a short while, promising to return it once I had completed my own version. With their consent, I carefully transported the painting back to my studio. There, I set up my easel and began to work. The ghostly figure seemed to come to life under my brush, its presence growing more pronounced with each stroke of paint. As I painted, I felt an inexplicable connection to the spirit depicted on the canvas, as though it were guiding my hand. Days turned into weeks as I became obsessed with capturing the spirit's essence. I could feel it watching over me in my studio, its mournful eyes following my every move. It whispered to me in my dreams, a voice filled with longing and despair. I couldn't stop painting, couldn't tear myself away from the canvas. But with each passing day, something in me began to change. I grew increasingly distant from the world outside my studio. Friends and family worried about my well-being, but I was consumed by the need to finish my masterpiece. I no longer recognized the person I had become. One fateful night, as I put the final touches on the painting, I heard a voice behind me. It was Lily's voice, but it was different, distorted, as if it came from the depths of the ocean. She spoke of a tragic tale, of a shipwreck long ago, and a soul trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead. It was the story of the ghostly figure, the very spirit I had brought to life on my canvas. I turned to face Lily, but she was no longer the innocent child I had met. Her eyes were empty voids, and her body seemed to sway with an otherworldly grace. She beckoned me to follow her, and I couldn't resist. We walked through the darkness, and I felt the presence of the ghostly figure all around us. We arrived at the shore, where the sea roared with a furious intensity. Lily's voice grew louder, and I could see the ghostly figure in the crashing waves. It was real, tangible, and it reached out to me with longing. I knew then that I had unwittingly unleashed a vengeful spirit, and it hungered for something only I could provide. Desperation seized me, and I pleaded with the spirit to release me from its grip. I promised to help it find peace, to tell its tragic story to the world. As I made my pledge, the ghostly figure's eyes softened, and it slowly faded into the sea, its mournful wails carried away by the wind. I was left standing on the shore, trembling and shaken. The weight of what had transpired pressed down on me, and I knew I had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. The following days were a blur as I struggled to piece my life back together. The painting, now devoid of its haunting presence, was returned to the family, who had been worried sick about me. I tried to move on from that terrifying ordeal, but the memory of the ghostly figure and the darkness it had brought into my life haunted me. I could never forget the sensation of being on the brink of losing myself completely, consumed by a malevolent force born from my own artistic obsession. To this day, I am wary of the mysteries that lie beneath the surface, and I paint only what I see in the light of day, fearing the darkness that lurks in the shadows of the imagination. The sea, once my muse, has become a reminder of the horrors that can emerge when one delves too deep into the unknown.